Hey Tony, it's Friday, and first off, to answer your question of the week, we're free most weekends. I know Taylor and I will not be March 14th, I think is what it is.
No idea.
Uh, Past March we'll be pretty free, but March and February are gonna be a little rough. So let me know when you might be able to come up, and we can actually game plan something together. We might be moving here in the next few months, so we'll see. But we'll see if we can game plan something together. So that's your answer to your question. And now, on to the main subject of this week. There's a lot I could talk about involving the government right now, particularly since President Trump just declared an emergency to build the wall. But I don't really want to go into that right now because it's pretty complicated and not necessarily worth my time at this moment because litigation is going to happen and that wall's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So instead, what I actually want to talk about is something that was actually good news with the government this week, which you don't often get to say, and that is at least the Senate, almost unanimously passed a new federal land bill, which is really awesome, and I can tell you why it's awesome. So what the bill does, I can't remember exactly what its title is, but what it does is it adds a whole bunch of new federal land for national parks and national monuments and things like that. So like Joshua Tree National Park just had a huge increase in size. And actually, closer to my home here, there was part of the bill includes the Connecticut-Massachusetts border and also the Connecticut-New Hampshire borders where they've added a lot of federal land. So we'll have a lot of state parks, not national parks, but state parks and national monuments through there. So there'll be a lot of really awesome hiking trails and things like that. This was such a huge thing this week because throughout President Trump's presidency, there's been a lot of, not so much debate, but a lot of discussion by mining companies and energy companies and things like that to try and decrease the size of some federal land. And the Senate, in a strange showing of bipartisanship, voted against that and basically voted to add all this new federal land for people to enjoy, which you and I were almost raised and traveled to so many national parks throughout our lives, and this is so cool and such awesome news that was really kind of looked over this week because there was a lot happened this week politically. And it was really just kind of I read one article by the New York Times, and I think one article by the Washington Post about it, but there is some good news out there. And it kind of leads to the constant debate that has been really prescient throughout about the last 150 years or so. And probably about the last 130 years, I would say, in which the government has had a constant give and take between making public land for national parks and things like that and allowing a lot of our incredible landmarks to be used for capitalistic purposes such as mining rights and things like that. So there's a really great podcast that I've recommended you before that I really think you should listen to is American History Tellers, and they actually did an entire series on the national parks, which was really cool. It was at the end of 2018. I think it was November was when it started, but it was really great to listen to because the country has had this constant give and take between private rights and public land. Particularly, like some of the most popular national parks are like Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, and Acadia National Park. Those are four of the most popular ones that were all distinctly mentioned within this podcast. It mostly talked about Yellowstone and Yosemite, but there's a lot of really cool information because we almost didn't have those national parks. Had things changed at the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century, we probably wouldn't have any national parks. But there was a large support for public land for people to enjoy and to not privatize. And it's mostly because people didn't want all these incredible landmarks to turn into Niagara Falls. Now, you and I have been to Niagara Falls before, and it's very cool, very pretty. But it's also super commercialized. And back in the late 1800s, it was even worse. Because they've made a lot of strides to try and make it so it's not for lack of a better term, tacky and commercialized. But really listen to the podcast. It's really excellent. I can't recommend it enough. And it was actually some good news this week on the political front. So, Tony, my question for you is, what's your favorite national park you've been to? Tony, I'll see you on Tuesday. Later, bro.